Hey guys! So, as you can probably tell immediately, I am painting super teeny mermaids today. And I know Mermay is now officially over, and I'm sure you're all tired of merfolk, but, well, these wee paintings were an ordeal, so I just didn't get them done in time for Mermay. I mean, the day this video is going up is June 1st, so it's kinda like I almost made it, right? Actually, super quick before we go any further, I do want to mention I am aware that the lighting in this video is kind of all over the place, and I did try to even it out as much as I could. I filmed with my window open, and natural light is super fickle, so I apologize if you find it jarring. As I'll get to in a few moments, I was not about to repaint and refilm these two all over again. I know it seems like I'm talking about how art is not going how I planned a lot lately, but these paintings are definitely an example of that. Except I don't think it's so much that my plans fell through, it's that I didn't go into these paintings prepared. I have never actually done ACEO size artwork before. If you haven't heard of ACEO, which is ACEO, it stands for Art Card Editions and Originals. I think. Anyway, that's what the internet told me. You may also hear them referred to as ATC or Art Trading Cards. They're 2.5 inches wide and 3.5 inches tall, which is basically the same size as a standard playing card or a magic card, if you're into that, which I am. That's pretty teeny. I mean, I'm not getting into super teeny art challenge territory. I'll leave that to artists like Casey Golden and Jazza, but it's still pretty small when you're used to working on 6x9 inch paper at the very smallest. My whole inspiration for this was actually Claire from Black Summer Coloring. She put together the very fantastic ACEOAPRIL challenge, which is another art challenge I missed. But she might be doing it again in August, so I will link her channel down below in the description box so you can go subscribe to her and not miss out if she does bring it back. So, since I've never worked at card size before, I expected it would take maybe a couple of hours max to knock out the mermaid, so I figured I would try mirroring the painting and trying 2 different color palettes to make it a bit more interesting. I first noticed how tricky it was to work at this size when I was creating the line art. And yes, I did cheat and sketch and ink this piece using Procreate because I knew there was no way I could ink something so small without messing it up. I also wanted colored line art, and all of my pens are black. So I ended up trying to paint these mermaids 4 different times. I'm not exaggerating. What you are watching is the 4th attempt to paint these things. I will spare you a rundown of all the painful details, but I ran into a lot of issues. I think a lot of said issues were related to the fact that I think my masking fluid has gone bad or something, because it keeps ripping up my paper. I don't use heat on it, I let the paper dry completely before I try to take up the fluid, but it doesn't matter. It is over a year old at this point, so it's definitely probable that it has just gone bad. Masking fluid is probably the most precious art supply I've ever used. It goes bad, it clumps together if it gets any air at all. If you leave it on your paper too long, it will stain the paper. It will peel up your paper if the paper is damp at all. You aren't supposed to use heat to dry your paper because I think it either stains or sticks to it. I don't actually know. It will damage your paper just because it feels like it. Oh, and it stinks. I have a lot of feels about masking fluid, guys. My other issue is that I found it hard to properly picture while inking how tiny the art really was. So in a way, doing it digitally kinda screwed me over. In the original version, the hair was way too thinly lined, so when you printed it, you lost all the detail. So for later attempts, I did go back and fix the line art. I did use fairly limited palettes for these guys, at least as far as I usually go. Both mermaids have similar skin tones, but one is slightly more yellow and one is slightly more pink. I also used Daniel Smith's Phthalo Blue Red shade for the water of the mermaid on the left, and M. Graham's Phthalo Blue Green shade for the water of the right mermaid. The difference is pretty minimal. So minimal that I'm pretty sure I switched them at one point, and in the finished product the water looks pretty identical. The colors in their hair and fins are actually only 3 different paints. For the left, I used M. Graham's Cobalt Teal and Permanent Green Pale with Da Vinci's Phthalo Green Yellow shade. For the right, I used Da Vinci's Quinacridone Red, Holbein's Crimson Lake, and Sennelier La Petite's Cobalt Violet hue. I kinda regret using the Sennelier La Petite shade because I feel Quinacridone Violet probably would have gone better with the palette, and it would have been a lot more pigmented, and I wouldn't have had to fight with it as much. I also used the Phthalo blues for the shading on the skin later on down the line in an attempt to harmonize the pieces and make the mermaids look as if they're actually underwater. I considered glazing the entire thing to really get that underwater feel, but I was concerned that I would completely ruin both pieces. Which actually brings me to the issue I had working on these paintings for the 4th time. Fear. I was so scared I was going to ruin them again that I didn't want to try anything new, even though I know all I need to do is reprint my line art and start over. This isn't usually an issue when I work bigger, strangely enough. I was just so tired of working on these mermaids that I just didn't want to have to start over yet again. Working so small was definitely a huge challenge, especially since my smallest brushes are just round 2s. My partner paints miniatures, so I probably could have borrowed some of his super teeny brushes, and I'll probably consider doing that in the future if I ever do an ACEO card again. As much as this experience was a challenge, it was a nice challenge, and I think I might consider doing ACEO August if Claire does bring it back. If not, then there's always ACEO April next year. Mermay is another art challenge I really love the idea of, since I'm one of those 90s kids who grew up in what seemed like the era of mermaids. I have attempted it a couple of times, and I just never made it through for whatever reason. Mermay was created by Tom Bancroft, and I'll put his link and the link to the Mermay website down below, even though I know it's over with for this year. The very first movie I remember ever seeing in a theater, even though I was a toddler, so the memory is super hazy, is The Little Mermaid. I watched that movie nonstop alongside Splash, which was a live-action mermaid movie with Daryl Hannah and Tom Hanks. I actually remember one of my friends got in trouble because I let her borrow Splash, and her parents weren't so keen on Daryl Hannah's hair-concealed nudity. I think because of this childhood obsession with mermaids, I have this need to have all my mermaid pieces be perfect somehow, and they always let me down in some way. I know that sounds ridiculous. I mean, I think that sounds ridiculous anyway. If any of you guys have any similar experiences with putting way too much pressure on yourself in regards to just one art-related thing, whether it's using a particular medium or drawing something in particular, please let me know down below. I would like to know I'm not alone. Okay, so I feel like I learned a ton from working on these pieces 4 times over. I understand better how to ink an ACEO so it's more usable in painting, though I honestly do not understand how Claire and some of the other ACEOAPRIL participants managed to make these things using Copic markers. Clearly, they are magic. These did end up a bit simple in the end to avoid ruining them, but I think I kinda like how they turned out. I didn't rely on white gel pen to make anything pop because I knew I wouldn't be able to get it very smooth on such small pieces, which was one of the issues I had in a past version. And I'm fine with that. I do still wish I'd had the guts to glaze the blue over the entire pieces, but, you know, maybe sometime in the future I'll try that. And maybe someday I'll finally make a mermaid painting that I love. If you happen to watch all of this, you deserve a cookie. A metaphorical cookie of my love and appreciation. I'd also appreciate it if you subscribed and gave this video a like. I'll be back next Friday with another video, so thank you so much. Bye!